over. You can tell it's half drank. I'm glad I brought my own.
Water the plants, right?
Yeah, right.
I thought I saw Roberta here. I thought I saw Roberta here.
He was here, but he left. Yeah.
So is Roberto's name tag on there? What's that?
We're ready.
All right, I think we're about ready. Can everybody hear me back there? Good, okay. Okay, so I'd like to call the meeting to order. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of October 28th, 2021. I'd like to remind everyone to please silence your phones if you have one. And I'd like to ask you to stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Can we have the roll call, please?
Jamie Girardi,
Here.
Don Anderson,
Here.
Peter Hansel,
Here.
Roberto Size, Christopher Poole,
Here.
Richard Tonello representing Chris Williams,
Here.
Chairman Charles Gray.
Here. So, for anybody who may give testimony today or to come up and speak, if you please stand and raise your right hand and be sworn.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give today is the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
All right, and could you read the proof of publication, please?
The items were advertised in the Tampa Bay Times on July 21st, 2021, October 6th, 2021, and October 13th, 2021.
All right, thank you. So again, I'd like to welcome everybody. We're the Planning Commission. We serve as a local planning agency. We hold public hearings and transmit to the Board of County Commissioners our recommendations on comprehensive plan amendments, land development code amendments, rezonings, and conditional use requests. The Planning Commission is the final decision-making body for special exceptions, certain appeals, variance requests, and certain alternative standard requests. However, final decisions may be appealed to the Board of County Commissioners. If anyone is in opposition to any comprehensive plan amendment, land development code amendment, rezoning, conditional use, or any item where the Planning Commission transmits a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, it's important for you to attend the appropriate Board of County Commissioner meeting. In the course of the meeting, we have sort of three sections that we typically cover. First is the consent agenda. And on that agenda are items listed wherein we have not had any objection from staff or the public. And those items will be gone through one at a time. And if you hear an item on consent agenda and you'd like to have it heard today, raise your hand. We'll pull it off consent agenda for discussion. Otherwise, we'll vote at one time on the consent agenda at the end and approve it. And before we move on to continuances and to the regular agenda items. So I believe we don't have any minutes to approve. And do we have any public comment for anything that is not on today's agenda? Don't see any.
Mr. Chair, I do want to mention that there is a gentleman by the name of Mark Finney who signed up to speak in public comment on WebEx, but he is not on.
All right. And let's move on. So I think we're ready.
Great. Denise Hernandez, Planning and Development. First item is PC1, PDD 227572. It's a zoning amendment under the name of American Homes for Rent, TRS LLC, Bridgehaven. It's for a change in zoning from an R4 high-density residential district with conditions to an R4 high-density residential district. Comes to you with a recommendation of approval.
Okay, is the applicant present? Anyone here to object? See no objections?
Following item is PC2, PDD 227569. This is a zoning amendment in the name of Arlington Dale Mabry MPUD Master Plan Unit Development, 1170 Dale Mabry LLC. This is a rezoning request from an MPUD Master Plan Unit Development to an MPUD Master Plan Unit Development to allow for a maximum of 238 multifamily residential entitlements, in addition to the existing 182,745 commercial retail entitlements which are already on the ground, and to change the name of the MPUD to Arlington Dale Mabry MPUD. It used to be called Dale Mabry MPUD. This comes to you with a recommendation of approval with conditions as included in your agenda packet. We did send a revised agenda memo to you yesterday, and we copied the clerk as well.
Thank you, Denise. Is the applicant present? Applicant's online, you said? Okay. Is anyone here to object?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a comment on that one, so I'd like to pull it.
Like to pull it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so it's pulled.
Great. And actually, that was going to be your last consent item because we were going to move on to item P6 based on a request that was approved by the chairman to move to item P6.
All right. Let's have a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Is this
Should we
a
move
minor-
on to PC3? Is there a, I apologize, you know what? We have one additional item, and I forgot to mention that we do have a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment. So can I, it's PC3, I apologize for that.
consent? Okay,
Yes.
no problem.
Yes.
It was probably me. I was rushing you.
No, it's actually me, not you. PC3, PDD 220004. It's a small-scale comprehensive plan amendment to the future land use map, map 2-15, and sheet 22, changing from Res 3, residential 3 dwelling units per gross acre to COM, commercial, on approximately 4 acres of property located on the southeast corner of the intersection of Foxwood Boulevard and State Road 54. Probably the reason why my brain compartmentalize this is because you're sitting as a local planning agency for this one. So just to mention to you that you're sitting as a local planning agency on this one. So we're asking that you find the item consistent with the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan and that you recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners on this item.
All right. Is there anybody here to speak on this item? If not, I'll hear a motion.
I'll move to adopt PC3 on the consent agenda
Okay.
for amendments to the comprehensive plan.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion of the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
So would the Planning Commission like a full presentation on item PC2, or is there just some questions on the item?
Just a quick comment.
Okay.
We go?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so it was 238 units.
238
Okay.
multifamily, so apartments.
I did a concurrency review for it in April of last year for 202 units, so just so the applicant knows, I'll have to resubmit for school concurrency for those other units.
That is noted.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That being done, do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve PC2 on the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Further discussion of the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
So we're going to move on to item P6.
Right.
For this item, the chairman has granted 20 minutes time to Ms. Wilhite and her team.
If she needs it.
If Ms. Wilhite needs it, right. The request is for 20 minutes maximum time, yes. So if this item seems familiar, is because the Planning Commission was provided a full presentation on this item. It's PDD 227552 on August 26th of 2021. This is SR 40 LLC Riverside Village 5. It's for a change in zoning from an R2 low-density residential district to an MF1 multiple-family medium-density district with a voluntarily agreed-upon deed restriction limiting the uses to a total of 55 townhomes, villas, or duplexes, and for there to be street trees and/or front yard trees. On August 26th, you received a full presentation at the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission requested that the rezoning address concerns related to trees, provide a concept plan, and show the layout of townhomes on the site. The applicant will be presenting a concept plan today. Additionally, the Planning Commission had asked for folks from Stormwater to be here to address the overall stormwater issues in the area. We do have some folks on WebEx who have been promoted to panelists so that they can speak on those issues as well. So do you want me to turn it over to the applicant?
Yeah, that'd be fine. And before we do I have a motion to receive and file
So moved.
this document? We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi, good afternoon. Barbara Wilhite, 6327 Grand Boulevard, Newport Richey, Florida, 34652. We've come forward today to address the items that you wanted more information on. We have added the deed restriction regarding the trees for the townhomes. Those were received by Ms. Snyder over here from the county, and we incorporated them into our deed restrictions. We also have Chris Shear, the client, is going to present to you. He has an abundance of knowledge regarding the drainage in this area. He's brought his engineer, Robert Gonzalez, and to be able to address any questions. We also have with us as well Steve Henry to talk about traffic. He's joined our team because there was questions about traffic at Planning Commission, so we wanted to have somebody that could actually speak to that on behalf of the applicant. So I'm just going to turn it over to Chris, and he's going to talk about the drainage and his concept plan, and then Steve will talk about traffic, and then we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Chris Shear. I live at 235 3rd Avenue North in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I have been sworn in.
Okay.
As has been discussed, there were concerns expressed about stormwater, traffic impacts, and the Planning Commission asked for a conceptual site plan, which I brought with me today. And I'd like to flip to my first, look at that, works. So first thing I would like to hit with you is the causes of street flooding and the causes of flooding that's occurring on my property and has been for decades. In 2015, I hired Robert Gonzalez, a professional civil engineer, to determine the cause of flooding on my property and Alvernon Drive. And this is Alvernon Drive. And that's my property, and this is River Chase along the bottom, and this is Riverside Village at the top. Mr. Gonzalez identified 2 causes of flooding in his stormwater report dated October 15, 2015. On October 18th of this year, Mr. Gonzalez issued an update inspection report confirming the 2 causes identified still exist today. And I provided you a copy of that letter. It should be the first one on your stack. Both the flood study and a letter reconfirming his findings have been submitted to staff. And Mr. Gonzalez is here today if you have any questions following up after I make this brief presentation. Okay. Mr. Gonzalez's first cause of flooding on my property in Alvernon Drive is the failure of the Riverside Village Unit 4 drainage system. Now, the drainage system for Riverside Village is big, but the failures he found are along here, this outfall structure here, and the outfall structure here, which is causing water to rush across this wetland and across the street and fill my property with water and flood Alvernon Drive. And I got a blow up with that area for you somewhere. There you go. Is it possible to adjust that up a little? So no, okay, that's fine. This line, oh, I'm hitting the wrong button myself. Okay, my bad. Okay, this red line here is where a ditch should be. The ditch is known as ditch KK from the plans that were approved in the 80s, and it was built when the subdivision was built. That plan, or that ditch, KK, is very important because the water from this pond, and these houses are supposed to discharge to that ditch. And they run down the ditch, and then they are supposed to come across and feed into this pond for treatment and for storage. But the problem is, and also down here, it's supposed to pick water up off of Aldernon Drive, put it back up here, and then put it into this pond. But that entire ditch is non-existent. The second problem we have with Riverside Village is this outfall structure here and the outfall pipes. So when that pond gets up to where the level it's supposed to design for, the water's supposed to go through those pipes and across the street to a drainage ditch on the north side south side of Alvernon and go this way and head towards the river. But this has completely failed. It's clogged up. The water's not going in the pipes at all. And in fact, the water is, when it fills up, it goes this way and then finds its way around and comes down, and it fills up my property down here, and it floods Alvernon Drive. The third failure that he identified in 2015 and re-identified just last 2 weeks ago is outfall structure number 2 here. This one, that outfall structure is operating at about a 50% capacity. So anyway, those are his findings on that, and it's really just causing a lot of flooding, but I'm gonna go to the next one. Boom. This is a picture of the area behind the wetland where there should be a ditch here behind these houses running along this wetland. There is no ditch. If there was, you would see it. It would be about 3 feet tall on each side and be flat in the bottom and be coming towards us, so to speak, in that picture. So that outfall structure, that ditch KK is non-existent, hasn't been existent for a decade. This is Mr. Gonzalez standing in front of outfall structure 3 that I just described, that's totally failed. You can see he's circling, he's got 3 up, so we knew what picture it was. That is a picture of outfall structure number 3. And that is the biggest source of flooding. That pond right there, if that structure was working, you would see the drainage pipes. You can't see them because they're underwater, because it's not draining. You got grass growing in here and weeds coming out, and these are totally impacted with mud and silt and dirt and grass. This pond is about 3 feet taller than it needs to be, or should be. And every time it rains like today, the water hits that pond and then it starts coming from my property and Alvernon Drive. When I took that picture, I looked around behind me and I happened to take this picture, and I noticed that the homeowner here has built a retaining wall to prevent his it's almost a seawall, to prevent his property from falling into the pond, because the pond is so high. You can see, it's just, it's out of control. So this is outfall structure number 2. This is the third one that I told you was operating at 50% capacity. It needs a little work right here on the outfall structure, but if you look at the drainage pipes, there's 2 drainage pipes in there. This pipe right here is full of water. This pipe is bone dry, which led us to believe that this pipe up here was functioning, and this one was completely stopped up. So at best, it's operating at 50% capacity, and when the storms like today hit, and there's already a bunch of water in the pond, the water can't get in those pipes fast enough, so it just kind of rolls over into the street, you know. It's got nowhere else to go. So I wanted to talk to you about some solutions for that problem, because I would like to see solutions for that problem, even though it's not my property. It's flooding me and it's flooding the street. So I personally would like to rebuild ditch KK. I would like to rebuild the outfall structures 2, 3, and clean out the drainage pipes underneath Alveron Drive so it can get to the drainage ditch and get out of the subdivision. I have submitted to a deed restriction to your staff that would require me upon, if my zoning application is approved and at the start of construction of my development, it would require me to fix this system. And you have a copy of that deed restriction. That should be the third one in your packet. So, but I wanted to let you know, though, up front, that these repairs will complement our permitted plan and drainage plans and will increase the capacity in the area, but they're not a requirement. And they're not a requirement of my permits. My permits are good for the drainage system I proposed, and they stand on their own. This would be an additional improvement to the area that I'd like to do. Okay, we'll move on to the second cause of flooding. Oh, by the way, if you would like more information, these are the original civil engineering plans for the Riverside Village drainage system. I've kind of highlighted them to show you where the water goes and stuff like that, but we can do that later. This one shows you the ditch KK and how it's supposed to be built. And there's a copy of the deed restriction that's on top of your pile. Okay, so anyway, the second cause of flooding on my property in Alvernon Drive is the flawed design and construction of River Chase. The shared property line, I think I'll go to the area. Again, this is River Chase right here on the south side of my property line. The shared property line between my property and River Chase is approximately 2,340 feet long. Mr. Gonzalez discovered that the back 50 feet of the lots in River Chase and 1/2 the rooftops all drain to my property. They're about 4 feet high and they just shoot right to my property. 2,000 feet times 50 times some rooftops is a heck of a lot of water when it rains a lot. This water floods my property, and then it commingles with the water from Riverside Village Unit 4. So I got water flooding me all along this way, and then I got water flooding me from this direction. And it all pools this way and starts running up this way along Alvernon Drive and in my property. And it goes all the way up here sometimes. Excuse me. And it contributes to the street flooding. There is no treatment, and there are no retention ponds designed for that property. It just jet flows onto the back of into my property. And I got some pictures of the typical houses back here. This is a typical house in River Chase, which is on my south side. I'm kind of standing on my property line. But as you can see, this pool deck right here it leans towards my property. It drains here, and then it washes down. It does it as well over here. You can see all this water that's coming my way. Then, if you look, you'll see a little black spot here. I don't know if you can see that, but that black spot is that drainage pipe at the corner. And what's going on is all the houses out here have tied drainage pipes into their gutters and downspouts, and they're all piping water down to the back of the yard, and then it all runs down to me. So that's where I'm getting the roof runoff, and the pool decks and all kinds of water. So here's another one you can see. This is the where the property breaks towards me. This is a house right there. You can see that comes this way. You can see the fence comes this way. There's so much water coming off these rooftops that I'm getting a little creek to develop back here. So there's another one another house, you can see where the water's coming down, hitting the backyard, and then flooding into my property. It's doing it at the corner as well. So it's very, very typical out there for me to get all this runoff. Should never been approved this way. There should have been a retention pond set up to catch that water and treat it. It's not being treated or anything like that, but it doesn't matter. It's the way it is. But so the solution of the problem is I will construct the 2,000 lineal foot ditch and drain pipe system between River Chase and my property as approved by Swiss Mud and Pasco. I already have permits to fix this. I'll build a 35-foot ditch in there, put drain pipes in there, and then it will go backwards. When I build that ditch along here, all this water will travel this way. I have a pipe permitted to go under Patrician Drive. It'll come out to here, and this is the main drainage ditch for the whole area. And this is the one that sends it down to the Anclote River where it belongs. So I already have this solved. I just need to get it under construction. And that's how that will improve. The ditch will remove the River Chase stormwater from my property, the general area, and it will help prevent street flooding, which is what everybody's concerned about. So I have two options to get actually three, because my permit also calls for me to rebuild this drainage ditch along Alvernon Drive. So, you know, we rebuild this, I build that here, and I rebuild this ditch here, and boom, we got where the water getting out of there as fast as possible. So with that, that's pretty much my, what I want to tell you about drainage, and that's what I know, and that's what I propose. I would like to fix the problem. And, excuse me, I'd like to move on to my site plan. I'm trying to do it in the time limit. This is my conceptual site plan. First thing I want you to notice is that this site plan that you're looking at is only half of the property. Alvernon, my property from the corner of Alvernon Drive to the end of the road, where it dead ends, is 2,190 lineal feet. It's 42% of a mile. There's very little traffic on this road, and there's a dead end at the end. So this is the first part of it. My proposal for the site includes an interior drive aisle, which will minimize the openings on Alvernon Drive. I got one here, I got two over here, and then this is the second half of the property. And then I got one opening here, and then two here. I would like you to notice some of the neat features about the property. This property is 200 feet deep. The setback from Alvernon Drive to this first building will be 80 feet. That's huge. The setback from here to the second building, I'd like to stagger the buildings that look better. That'll be about 85 feet. The distance between Alvernon Drive and this green space will be 35 feet in depth, and then it goes between Alvernon Drive and the interior driveway. The rear yard setback, a lot of people on River Chase are worried about rear yard. The rear yard setback right here between that building is 91 feet. 91. That's most home sites aren't 91 feet. This one is 86. I have 20 feet between each building, 20 feet between those, 20 feet between those. And I don't think they have anywhere close to that in River Chase. Also, I know that it's very important to some commissioners that we don't have townhomes stuck up against the road and little 2-foot strips of grass be going between them. As you can see, the grass areas between my driveways and my townhomes, this one will be 20 feet by 22 feet. This one will be 11 by 22. So there'll be nice green spots in the middle for trees and bushes and everything that the landscaper would like to put in. Amenities, well, actually, for just a second, I would like to just contrast what I see here, how this was built, with everybody jammed up against the street and everybody jammed together. I got green space upon green space all over the place. And I carried that design all the way through. This is the end of the road. I got wetlands at the end. I got a wetland break between the clubhouse area and the play area and this last unit down here. On amenities, I'm planning on a clubhouse with a pool for the community. And I got a nice little design for a playground and they call it a flex court. Now if I can develop this, there's a lot of benefits to the area. One, the homeowners association will be responsible for the drainage ditch here and the drainage ditch back here. So the drainage ditches will be maintained. They haven't been in the past. Two, I will completely rebuild this drainage ditch, and this one will be a brand new drainage ditch, you know, and that's for the community. It's not just for me. It's for River Chase. They need to get their water out of there. It's just sitting there. Also, my plan calls for 2,100 lineal feet of sidewalk running all the way down Alvernon. Now, most of the areas out here don't have sidewalks, but this one does, and it ties into the River Chase area, so there'll be a continuous sidewalk all the way down to the end of the property. Am I over 20 minutes?
No, you've still got a minute left, I think.
Okay. So that's a good benefit. And then I even have room for, because I keep being asked about it, it's hard to see. You could probably see it on your plans. I got a little area here, and I don't know if that's where it'll go, but I think we could put a nice little covered bus stop in there because a lot of people have been asking for that, so that wouldn't be a problem. So anyway, in long and short, I've identified stormwater problems that presented the solutions. I've developed a concept plan which demonstrates compatibility with my neighbors and provides many benefits to the area. The repairs to Riverside Village Unit 4 and the new 2,100 square lineal foot drainage ditch will be very costly. Therefore, that's why I'm requesting the increase in density to help cover these additional costs. And I believe my neighbors are sincerely concerned about stormwater issues. They should support my drainage plans and this rezoning. So that's pretty much what I wanted to go over with you today, and I appreciate the time. At this time, I'd like to introduce Steve Henry because
Before you do anything, let me just see if we have any questions from up here on the dais.
I do, Mr. Chair. Just real quick, if you could put up the aerial of the ditch KK,
the KK?
yeah, where you plan to repair that?
I think I'm going backwards, right?
There it was.
Yep.
Yes.
So the area that it winds around, it looks like it's mostly cypress dome. Have you explored the feasibility of actually being able to
So
construct that?
this was just a line I drew. It's really supposed to go back through here, and the cypress had stopped somewhere right in there. It's possible those bay heads have expanded, I
Right.
mean, because the ditch is not there, and it grew into the ditch. I don't know for sure. I could ask my engineer if he climbed all the way back through there, but it can be rebuilt. There's space to rebuild it back there.
Okay. Yeah. it's
And
just
there's
a
an
matter-
easement, and I don't think Swift Mob would give me a hard time about it because
Okay. Technically, it should be an improvement, but I mean, it just looks like you're building through a wetland there, so that's what I'm
well,
questioning.
sometimes Swift Mud says that maintenance is exempt from permitting, and sometimes they say, you know, I'll start fining you if you don't stop. So
Okay.
I'd have to check with them on that.
Okay, fair enough.
But rebuilding it would be the thing to do.
Yes, sir.
Chris, did you say,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
Okay, I just wanted some confirmation that this proposed ditch would be in the footprint of the existing, where the ditch should have been, and that it is actually on the
the HOA's property and it's not on private property. Have you explored that?
Yes, it's on their property. As a matter of fact, it's on,
HOA-owned property?
it's an easement, and the easement runs over the back of these home sites. And those home sites, the legal description actually extends into the wetlands.
Okay, okay.
Okay, question? Amy?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my questions. There is an easement there. I guess you confirmed that, but I guess, and maybe, are you planning to have your engineer come up, or? 'Cause
I was.
I had some questions about the drainage and the stuff that you mentioned was problems, and I was just having trouble following. I mean, from my understanding is there's a problem with the outfall out of the existing ditches, okay? Holding more water back from getting to you. So I was having trouble following how you were saying that was causing flooding on your property.
Well, the water is supposed to, I can have Bob answer that, but the water from this outfall is supposed to come to this ditch down here,
Okay?
and then it flows that way. Same thing with this outfall. It's supposed to come down here and drain that way, but it never gets there. It just
So
stays in the.
that causes flooding problems for the people to the north of you, not for you.
No, because what happens is this pond backs up right here, and then it comes through this channel here, and then it comes to me. And then it comes, and also it comes across the road. It comes across the road here. So everything out there heads south sooner or later towards the river.
Okay.
I have just one question, and it's kind of like a why question. Why has this not been maintained in the past, and will it be maintained going forward? And who has the responsibility for maintaining, especially the KK ditch that you indicated that has significantly incurred the problem for your property and for the residents who live there? So,
The homeowners association has refused to maintain their system.
do they have a responsibility to do
They
that?
absolutely do. It's their drainage system.
And why was it not enforced? I know you.
I can't get anybody to enforce it. I'm trying to enforce it right now. I'm litigating with them to try and get them to fix their system.
Yeah. I commend you for stepping up to try to repair some of this stuff out there.
Thank you.
So,
Okay, if there's no other questions,
Chris,
more
I
question.
got one more question.
Okay,
for
I
you.
do
I'm
too.
sorry.
Go ahead.
On your layout, if you go back to your layout, if you can just clarify for me one more time on the conceptual plan, how big are those units? And what are the
The units are
setbacks again?
45, they're 22 feet wide and 45 feet deep themselves. Ooh, how do I stop that?
I got you.
Oh, okay. Actually, if we go a little further, I meant to attach that and I forgot to, but I can't blow that up. Darn it. Oh, can you go, there's a building dimension in here for this building somewhere. I don't see it.
Right there, yep.
Well, it's gonna be 6 times 12, 6 times 20 is 180.
I was more concerned with the depth, because I did have some questions on how, I mean, so if I follow correctly, you're gonna restore the ditch on the east side of the road, on the south side of the road.
Yes.
Then
No.
you're gonna have
yes.
landscaping, you're gonna have the driveway, then you have a front yard, then you're gonna have the building, then you're gonna have behind the building. You show on your concept plan a row of trees, but then you also said you were gonna build a 35-foot wide ditch to convey the water coming to you from the south.
Mm-hmm.
I just wondered where all that stuff was gonna fit in there, that's all.
Well, some of the trees, on the architect got a little, I can't.
Which way do you want to go, that one? Up or down?
Let's go that way. So the property line's here, there'll be about a 35-foot ditch that goes along here.
So those trees will be gone.
But not all of them, some of them, some of them stay, some of them will go. But there'll be a tree line in there.
Okay. So I think you said there was 86 and 91 feet roughly from the backs of the buildings to the property line?
Yes, yeah, that's 91 feet right there, and then that's 86.
And the ditch you're building's 35 feet wide, is
Mhm.
that correct? Okay.
and I'm assuming had the ditch been built like it's supposed to have been, those trees wouldn't have been there anyway.
The ditch would have been, yeah, on their property or between us or something like that, so.
Any other questions?
Yeah, just the county staff, as you're watching, looking at this and seeing it, is there anything that gives you pause or makes you think that's not going to work or anything like that? Okay. Yes.
I think the staff's recommending approval, I believe.
Well, I think Richard's suggesting the drainage staff, if there's any,
Pardon?
I think you're suggesting the drainage folks, if there's any issues. with the
Yeah,
drainage
yeah.
folks,
Anybody, any county staff that's on the line or listening or here?
Hi, good afternoon, Commission.
Good afternoon.
Mr.
Go
Chairman,
ahead.
this
Go
is
ahead.
Sammy Huey.
Yes, go
This is
ahead.
Sammy Huey, Engineer 3 at Public Works.
Right.
I'm in the stormwater management section. I did have one comment for the applicant. How is the roadway runoff going to be conveyed to, basically from east to west where it is in the existing condition? Is there a proposed swell along the roadway as well?
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question. I didn't know it was that for me. Which ditch are you speaking about?
Just south of Alvernon Drive, is there a proposed swell that's going to convey the roadway runoff along the?
There's already one there. The road is there. And the plans have already been approved for that ditch along Alvernon Drive. I have the site development plans with Pasco County and with Swift Mud for that ditch to clear it out and convey the water into the ditch.
Okay, and a follow-up question would be, I've seen some older plans, and I haven't seen the latest updated plans that were submitted. There were some culverts going from the north to the south, basically where the ponds to the north outfall. And at one time, those pipes were scheduled to be plugged. Are those still scheduled to be plugged?
Bob, you know what, you want to come up here and answer some of these technicals?
Yes, could you just give your name and address, please? And
Robert Gonzalez, 6801 Rosewood Court, Tampa, Florida.
Thank you, Robert.
I've never seen a plan. I've permitted this project back in 2006, and since prior to that, I've never seen a plan that suggested plugging any drainage pipes. In 2015, I did the inspection and report, which found that the pipes in the ditch, are plugged. There's not water flowing from north to south underneath the road, and the ditches KK and those do not exist, which causes the water to come around the end of Alvernon onto his property. It's probably flooded today, as it has been for the last 10 years.
Yeah, as I understand, the pipes that are plugged are part of the problem. Is that not correct?
Yes, yes. That outfall structure is to release water after it's been treated in that larger pond. And as you can see from the picture, it has no water leaving it, and the structure's not performing its purpose.
Right.
I did a rational design calculation on a 25-year, 24-hour storm. Within 30 minutes, the water coming from the eastern portions that go around Alvernon start to flood the property because it's not going into the main retention pond.
So it can't get to the river.
Right. It comes to our property, or Chris's property, and it's been that way. We had quite a bit of problems with the Swift Mud and the jurisdictional lines because the wetlands almost increased 3 times.
Sure.
Just because it had so much water going to it. And we provided that study to Swift Mud, and they said that's correct. It's man-made, it's not natural, and so they gave us back our old jurisdiction lines.
Okay, any other questions? For Mr. Gonzalez? Okay, Barbara.
Just a clarification from staff. This is Sammy Huey again. Just to confirm that the pipes underneath Alvernon, those will remain as they are now. they're not going to be capped, right? Just confirmation on that.
No, there's no capping. We would like to have them opened up to release the water and stop it from coming around the east end of Alvernon Drive and flooding our property.
Right. All right, thank you, Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you.
Barbara Wilhite, so we are on our 20 minutes. Steve Henry can talk in rebuttal. You might want to hear your citizens now.
Yeah.
And we'll just rebut, during rebuttal, I can talk and Steve.
Okay.
So, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, so is there anybody here from the public that would like to speak? Welcome. If you just come forward and give us your name and address, please. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good to be here again. I'm Miriam Butler. I'm from Riverside Village Estates. I live at 4347 Genesee Lane, and I'm on the board of the HOA. And I want to commend Mr. Shearer's plan. I think it would be great with the single-family homes that strip is currently zoned for. We would love to see those improvements. We are aware of some problems with some of our drainage. We have an engineering report, though, that says while it cites some of the same areas, it said that we are not responsible for flooding on Mr. Shearer's property. I want to point out, too, that Alvernon Drive does not flood right at the end there, where he seemed to be indicating that it floods. It floods where the ditches join at Patrician and where his ditch and the county ditch. We call it a county ditch. There's still confusion over who's entirely responsible, but it's not us. It's not on the Riverside Village Estates property, that cross ditch there. We have met recently with Sammy Huey and with John Pawanda of Swiftmud, because at the last meeting in August of the 26th, it was mentioned that it was our responsibility as well as the county that those ditches and all were flooding. And we've met with them, and they said it's really not. The ditches are overgrown, including the one on Alvernon that Mr. Shearer owns. And it's that while we have some repairs that might need to be made to some structures, they are not impeding the way our pond system is supposed to function. Let's see. At this point, I would like to submit an email communication from a resident. This was from 2018, when the resident noticed that the county was outside and seemed to be working and the culverts on Alvernon. He wrote a message to the county asking what was being done, that he felt they said they were plugging up the culverts. And when he asked about it, am I through already?
You have one more minute.
Oh,
Go
my
ahead.
goodness. Okay, so those don't work now. They are plugged, and in this, it states what Mr. Shearer's plan was and why the work was done for the county. So let me submit that, please.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
Motion and a second. Further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so the plugging of the culvert seemed to have been proposed by him. Our weir at Alvernon, which is on Alvernon and near Ocklawaha, that they pointed out at 50%, that was flowing great during the recent stormy period, with all the heavy rain. I live on that pond, and I know that it was working the way it was supposed to. Whether it was all getting to the ditch on Alvernon is hard to tell because it's so terribly overgrown. But two of the other culverts that appear not to be working, they're bone dry. Nothing was flowing under the road. And we have that evidence that work was done without our HOA knowing. We want to see responsibility for that drainage system to be preserved. And we hope you will recommend that the zoning application be denied, please. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Good afternoon. My name is Ralph Brooks, and I'm an attorney, and I represent the Riverside Villages Estates, HOA, Inc. I'm a certified city, county, and local government board lawyer. I was assistant Sarasota County attorney Bradenton Beach attorney, the town of Yankeetown attorney. I'm currently serving as City of Naples attorney with Nancy Stuparich. Also was Monroe County's attorney. And I have a few things I wanted to bring to your attention. This conceptual plan, we've been asking for it. We asked for it as early as this morning before I left the office.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you state your address for the record, please?
My work address is Ralph Brooks, attorney, 1217 East Cape Coral Parkway, Cape Coral, Florida, 33904. We've been asking for this conceptual plan ever since you asked for it, and I asked for a copy of it this morning. It still wasn't there, and David Goldstein said, well, the applicant said they were going to turn it in today. I said, well, David, that really doesn't make sense because staff doesn't have a chance to review it. The stormwater staff that's on the team's meeting hasn't had a chance to review that. It was just handed out to you. I never got a copy of it. Our stormwater engineers would like to review it. They couldn't be here today. As was mentioned, they're suing us. And so we're in court because they've dragged us into court. There's another lawyer handling that case, but we have engineers and experts. It's our understanding that the county may have also worked on some of these culverts. And I don't know the details of that. Miriam's got an email, and she can answer more questions about that. You're being asked to rezone this property from single-family. There was a 19 single-family residential plan that was submitted. I think the applicant was mentioning, I've got plans for this, or I've got approved plans for that. I believe is referring to the 19 single-family homes. So we don't object to the 19 single-family homes. We need time to review these drainage plans, as do you. I commend Mr. Girardi. He's a PE, and he's able to review these things pretty quickly. He looks at them every day. But even a licensed professional engineer needs some time to review these. At least, I still have one more minute. Under the legal standard of Snyder versus Brevard County, you can deny a rezoning application if there's a legitimate purpose for keeping the existing zoning. Here, there's single-family homes to the north and single-family homes to the south, albeit with smaller lot lines. But we would prefer to see this area remain single-family homes for compatibility for the lifestyles that are enjoyed in Riverside Village Estates HOA. We don't own that Cypress Dome or any of the property. That's all private property. We are willing to talk and continue to talk with their engineers, or even perhaps mediate the case that's between us to reach some kind of agreed drainage plan, but we need time to do that. Please continue this once more again until staff has had a chance to review this, and you and us. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anybody else?
Good afternoon. My name is Renee Whitehead. The address is 9507 Alvernon Drive, Newport Richey 34655. So I live on Alvernon, directly across from this proposed change. I live just to the west of Patrician, and that bus stop right in front of my house, all this drainage right in front of my house, we see the flooding. Right now, it's raining. When we came out, all those culverts were full when we came here. So if you guys want a field trip right now, it's a good time to go see the flooding. Where he's talking about the current flooding, I don't see that as the issue. I see it more in front of our homes near Patrician. And those, I don't know what they're called, so forgive me, but the big concrete pipes that the water rushes out of in the current ditches south of Alvernon, those rush really fast and they are full of water all the time. And I don't understand conceptually this new plan. I would like time to look at it as well, because if more water is going to be coming out of those ponds and towards his property to these new ditches that he's building, that's going to be more water on that land. How are you going to have all these buildings with more water? And that site plan that was shown with the land and then a road and then the houses, where are those ditches in there? Because you did show trees, and I don't see where those ditches could possibly be. There was a comment made earlier that traffic is very light. I can tell you, my Ring cameras, my security cameras, constantly going off. There's constant cars, constant traffic. I've told you before, I am literally scared to check my mailbox because people drive so fast, so many cars. If somebody pauses to even say hi to a neighbor, cars rush around them because it's just a giant speedway that is full of people. There's so many cars coming out of Patrician right now because that neighborhood is so full. You've seen how condensed it is. And now that dumps out right in front of my house. This is going to dump out right in front of my house. And I didn't get a chance to count how many townhomes there were. It didn't look like 55 townhomes, so I'd like to know the number that's actually going to be built. And then, I don't know if this is a concern of anyone's, but it is a personal concern of mine, the wildlife. I've mentioned that before. Nightly, deer, coyote, gopher tortoises, all these animals are crossing the street of Alvernon, and more people, more traffic. Almost all of those trees are getting taken out. Where are our animals going to go? So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? If anybody else is going to speak, it'd probably be just as easy for you to just come up front. That way you can get right up. Yes, sir.
How we doing, sir? My
Good.
name is Marcus Coe. I live at 9304 Nile Drive, Newport Richey, Florida, 34655. A couple things that I wanted to bring up at the last meeting that we didn't get to talk about. Conceptually, in the first time, he said the unpenetrable earth was 55,000 square foot for all the townhomes that he was building. After looking at the presentation, I don't believe that to be accurate. He said if he built the 19 homes on the property, it would be 79,000 square foot approximately. I'm not a mathematician, but that looks like way more than 55,000 and way more than 79,000 square foot of unpenetrable earth. If you're having the drainage problems that they're all talking about, more concrete makes more problems. Years ago, somebody came up and they presented the stormwater issue with engineer drawings for the neighborhood behind the Riverside Estates or villas, and it was passed saying that there's no issue. You're always going to have contradictory stories, but if you look at what's in front of you, you have a flooding problem. I think it's great if he wants to rebuild the cauldrons. Why hasn't his area that's been there been maintained? It's been his property. It hasn't been maintained. It's overgrown, identified by him and by the county. So that hasn't been taken care of. What's the change now? How is it going to be maintained in the future? With the traffic problem, average household is 2 cars per house in the state of Florida. That's on, public knowledge of what they estimate. So each one of those townhouses is going to add 2 cars to the traffic. Is anybody actually, I asked if somebody would go out and look at the traffic between 4 and 5 or 6 and 8 in the morning. If anybody went out there, you'll see what it is. After 4 vehicles, if you're on the turn lane at St. Lawrence, you're not getting through that light. The traffic is so from Alveron to St. Lawrence, it is 0.7 of a mile. Up to the Heritage Lakes Boulevard, it is 0.9 of a mile. To the Alco exit, it is 1.9 miles from the corner of his property. Where's all that traffic going to go? It's going to go between 2 streets. They're not going to drive the 1.9 miles. They're going to drive the 0.7 or the 0.9 of a mile. The traffic is so bad at the Heritage Lakes that they no longer have a flashing yellow light because there's been so many accidents. It is now a solid red light. You can only turn on green. If you can't make it through on St. Lawrence and you're the 5th vehicle, when you had 110 cars, if he only does 55, he just said he's asking for additional because of doing these drainage improvements, then you're adding more vehicles to the traffic. No one is going to complain if it stayed the single family, not the multiple family. I think everybody would be happy if he built his 19 homes that he said was proposed and he had plans for. No one would be here arguing. Everybody would be for it because it maintains the structure of the community and everybody around it. When you start to change it and you're putting 2 stories, you're adding more impenetrable earth, you're adding more traffic, it changes a neighborhood. That's all I have.
Any questions? No? Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess there was no one else. I'm trying to get anybody that wants to speak to come up front, so we don't have to just wait for everybody to make the trip.
I'm so sorry. I have a problem with my voice, so I didn't know if I
That's
wanted
okay.
to speak or not.
That's-
But
that's fine.
Excuse me, were you sworn?
no, I was not.
Do you swear from the testimony you're about to give us the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
And if you could just please state your first and last name and address for the record.
I'm Tamala Smith,
Could you
101.
want to pull that microphone down a little bit for you?
Tamala Smith, 10152 Shooting Star Court, Newport Richey 34655. So I think that the biggest thing was what Mr. Shear actually said with how River Chase Unit 2 is. He said, I don't know why it was built that way. Who let it be built that way? I mean, that was a really stinky design, you know, with all of that water running down into his property. And I think that that's something that we should think about before we build all of these homes or, you know, put up more concrete is where is this water going to go? And if you looked at the other site plans and how close the ponds already are to those homes, I don't really know what you could do to not have some of those homes flooded, you know, if you build something on there. So that's all I would ask is that, you know, you think about what this design is going to do to the future instead of just approving it and saying, oh, we don't, you know, it doesn't matter what happens in the future. But, you know, I think he said it best when he said, why were those houses even built like that? It shouldn't have been approved in the first place.
Okay.
So that's my point. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I think that's it, Marva. Anybody else?
Thank you. Let me start out with Steve Henry, if you'd like. He has looked at the intersections of St. Lawrence and Little, and Heritage Lakes and Little, so he can tell you about it. We're not required to do a traffic analysis. We're not required to do a concept plan. We're not required to talk about drainage at rezoning, but we really want to make sure that your questions are answered as we move forward and to answer the questions that have come up from the citizens out there. So with that, Steve will tell you, you know, what he looked at and what he found.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Steve Henry, Links & Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa, 33607, and I have been sworn. As Ms. Wilhite had indicated, we weren't required to do a traffic study or timing and phasing analysis for this project. It generates less than 50 p.m. peak hour trips. Therefore, we're not required to do the analysis. But the client had asked us to go ahead and do that analysis. In addition, the code only requires that we do timing and phasing for the PM peak hour. We actually did it for both the AM and PM peak hour to look at that section of Little Road. So what we looked at was from Heritage Lakes to Old 54. And in fact, when you look at the timing and phasing and the criteria, we only look at where we're 5% of a roadway at best. In this case, we're actually less than 1% of the capacity of Little Road. So we have a very small impact. In fact, again, all the criteria, we would not be looking at this, but the client had asked us to look at it. So we went out and did the counts at all the intersections, and we ran arterial analysis at Little Road, which shows it does meet the adopted level of service on Little Road. We also looked at the intersections of both Little and Heritage Lakes Boulevard, St. Lawrence, and Old 54. Each of those intersections meet the adopted VC and delay criteria for those intersections. And then finally, we looked at the intersection of St. Lawrence and Little Road as far as the turn lanes, whether or not a northbound right turn lane is warranted. And based on the volumes, it is not warranted based on the code. In addition, we looked at the southbound left turn lane to make sure that that was long enough to accommodate both the existing traffic, projected future traffic, and our traffic. And based on that, that turn lane is adequate to be able to accommodate that traffic. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Steve, did you guys look at anything for the exit coming out of Riverside Village or out of at St. Lawrence and Hunters or Heritage Lakes? Or did you just look at the little road?
Well, we looked at the intersections there, but
Okay.
we didn't look at the individual inside the subdivision.
Yeah, I was just curious. I think the statement was made that only 4 cars can make it through the light at St. Lawrence, for example. Well, I don't know, is there 25 cars there or is there 5 cars there?
I can tell you exactly how many cars that are there. During the peak season volume, exiting at St. Lawrence. In the morning, there's about, I'm adding in my head, but around 130, 140 for the hour. And then in the PM peak hour, there's about 100 cars exiting St. Lawrence at Little Road. And those are based on actual counts that we did, and they're factored to peak season. So that's not a high volume coming out of that streets.
But only if only 4 cars, in fact, make it through the light. It takes you a while to get through the light.
Oh, no, and absolutely. The reality is the way, as you know, the way the county time signals is they're going to give the predominant green time to the arterial roadway, which is Little Road. So will there be delays on the side street? Absolutely. But that is the way in every intersection on every arterial roadway. That's the way that the county and DOT times their signals. But the delay and the VC ratio, volume to capacity ratio, even for the side street, meet the adopted criteria in the code. But yes, will there be delay? Yes, there will.
Very good.
Thank you. Okay, no other questions? Okay.
Thank you. I would just add a couple things. One, regarding criticism regarding the concept plan. My client has offered to meet with Riverside. The information regarding his solutions were sent to, I watched it from the council that represents Mr. Scheer go last week to the Homeowners Association. So there's lots of opportunity to work in the past and work in the future. Not really this commission that needs to mediate, whether people work together or not. Or even try to decide of who's right and who's wrong, who worked together, who didn't. But we'll continue to work and take comment on the concept plan. My client did meet with a neighbor who's not here today and took his ideas on this concept plan. It was actually that neighbor's idea to have the little frontage roads so there wasn't all those individual driveways. So going past here, he's going to continue to take comments on the concept plan. To answer the question, there's 44 units on that concept plan. It is a concept plan, hasn't been engineered. 55 is the maximum in the deed restriction. So we'd hope, and as far as like the zoning goes, the staff didn't give their full presentation, but MF1 townhomes are consistent with single family. There's clear precedent for MF zoning in the surrounding area. This property was zoned MF1 at one time. And if you look 350 feet to the west, 840 feet to the north, 1,100 feet southwest, 1,320 feet south, all MF1 zoning. The land use designation on this property is Res 9 units per acre, which would allow, I think, about 90 dwelling units. That's what the land use plan looks at. We've gone above and beyond to deed restrict the property with the limiting the types of units we can have in MF1, because apartments are allowed in MF1. And we've limited the ability to have apartments. We've prohibited it, actually. Maximum 55 units, we put in the street trees. Townhomes are commonly maintained, common architecture. The difference between setbacks between what Mr. Scheer is proposing and is allowed for single-family homes, you can have pools within 5 feet of a property line for single-family homes. His closest rear of townhome is going to be 80 feet or whatever the numbers he gave you. So we're talking about significant difference between an efficient layout when you go to attached product. And at the end of the day, this is attached versus detached. Single-family ownership, these aren't rentals, these are single-family homes for people. It's just attached versus detached. But when you attach them, you free up all that green space. And you can see visually in that concept plan how the land use pattern of single-family homes looks versus the pattern of townhomes. And they're a property owners association, they're commonly maintained, somebody mows the yard, somebody takes care of the outside, you have a common amenity so you don't have pools in everybody's backyard. And so all of those things lead to benefit. And when you speak about impervious, when you attach versus single family, generally speaking, there's less impervious. We can't increase the pervious. We're not going to increase the impervious for this project from what he's permitted for. So there's not going to be this increase or bait and switch that we're all of a sudden going to make the project have more impervious than what it would at single family. So I would hope that you would recommend this rezoning. Your staff has strongly recommended it. I've never seen a presentation from staff saying how consistent this is. I think my clients offer to actually do these improvements and to deed restrict. The first deed restriction we usually restrict in deed restrictions, the first deed restriction I've ever written where I'm obligating a client to do something and to tie that to the rezoning, and the county will be able to enforce that restriction. We've also offered to enter into an agreement with the homeowners association that mirrors that deed restriction. But even if they never want to work with us and enter into an agreement one-on-one, we have the deed restrictions the county can enforce. So if you have any other questions, the rest of my team's available, but thank you for your consideration for these 2 hearings and going through and listening to all of this. Thank you.
Okay, Barbara.
I've got a couple of questions.
Okay.
You wrote the restrictive covenants?
I wrote it with his land use litigation counsel.
Okay, all right, yeah, I just wanted to make
Robert
sure.
Lincoln.
I just wanted to ask about your paragraph 2.4 termination. So if this action, if he can't accomplish this and can't get the homeowners association to allow this to occur and so forth, the way I'm reading this is that the zoning will stay MF1 and doesn't revert back to R2. So I think
that's correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that we're reading it correctly. And then the other restrictive covenants are going to be in a separate document. And
Correct.
those will outlive this.
Correct.
Okay. And Swift Mud permits aren't called out in here either. Is there a reason why that couldn't be a condition also in here? Because
You know,
if you
I'm
can't get those,
I'm
none of it-
absolutely happy. We're not executing that deed restriction today. Elizabeth, I'll be happy to work with you and go over it and make it better. Like I said, the first one I wrote like that. So I actually called in my co-counsel, Robert Lincoln, and I'd be happy to make it better. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions?
Yeah, I have a couple for
All right, go
the
ahead.
attorney there.
Peter.
On, excuse me, on page 1 of the Declaration of Covenants, it states there's 3 items in there. To restore the swell known as KK. Is that true? They're going to restore it.
Yes.
Okay.
To its permitted condition. These were,
Right. The second one is to restore the outflow structure and associated pipes laying behind plat 69 or lot 69. That's correct too.
that's correct.
Okay.
Platted, so that's a platted lot.
Third one is to restore the outflow structure and associated pipes line in plat number 39. I just want to call your attention to the Riverside Village Unit 4 outflow structure, number 3. If they want to put that up there, that's fine. It indicates to me that this has not been maintained by the HOA. And therefore, I think what your client has done here on those 3 items that I just elaborated on shows that he wants to do something constructive for that community. I mean, this picture here is, if this was my association or HOA, I would feel embarrassed because it shows weeds growing. It shows that there's been no attempt to maintain this one particular pond. So for the association or their HOA to come up here and say, hey, look, their concern is that, let's see, how can I put this? There had been a number of people that spoke out about the water in the community, the drainage system. Based on what I see here, it shows that there's been very little, if anything, done to maintain the water structure or the water flowing within this community. And I wrote down basically 3 people have mentioned water just today. And I remember for the last time we discussed this issue, we put an overlay showing the areas that were flooded at the time because their concern was about water. So I think their concern should be with somebody that maintains some of these areas that you have pointed out to us, in particular this one photo here on the Riverside Village Unit 4 outflow structure, which is in poor condition. So that's all statements I have.
What I like about what the client proposed to you today, and we'll work on that deed restriction language, is we don't have to necessarily figure out who did what to whom in the past. We're offering a solution to move forward. And so that's really what, instead of whose responsibility and who didn't do something or not, this is the solution to move forward and to make improvements. And so I have not had a client do a presentation like that. and bring forward a solution, and has paid to study the problem himself and to bring forward a solution. I think the solution will resolve the issues, and we only need to figure out, who's right and who's wrong. We would like for you to support our rezoning and the project, and let my client get to work. Thank you.
Barbara, I commend your client for the commitment that he has to doing the drainage, but I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Who's going to maintain it going forward? That's kind of might continue. It seems like people are pointing fingers at each other as to who it is, if it's county, HOA, or whoever. So this problem's going to recreate itself potentially in the future if that's not cleared up. So it's more of a comment than a question. I think that's an important statement, that whoever's responsible for maintaining it, in the constructing condition, actually steps up and does that.
Understood. But I can tell you from my client's system, there'll be a POA in place.
Okay.
And for my client's system that he's going to construct with his project, it will be maintained. But you're right, it's going to be an ongoing issue. The county, you've got Mr. Huey, you've got John Pawanda, there's people involved in meeting on this larger issue of what goes on outside of my client's property. But a strong step forward is to get some of these things fixed. And then once they're fixed, you can see that they're fixed, right? And so hopefully that'll start making a change.
Yeah, I mean, Chris, I agree. I can't echo your thoughts more. I mean, I commend you for the efforts that have been put in. My concern with this whole thing is you have a project in an area where you have problems as they are. There's all kinds of flooding problems in that whole neighborhood, and there always have been. The onus shouldn't be put on you to fix it, but how can we approve putting more units out there and putting more people in harm's way when we know and acknowledge that there is a problem already?
But Mr. Girardi, because you're an engineer, we can't make the situation worse. And we're going to make the situation better. Legally, you can't make it worse. So it's really unfair to say, because there's these problems, my client's not going to make it worse. He's demonstrating he's making it better, but say that he can't develop his property.
Well, I do agree. However, there's a laundry list of things that are not included in the deed restrictions that are proposed, that have been represented here, that are, since it's Euclidean zoning, they're non-binding. They don't mean anything. There was mention of a ditch that was going to get constructed along the south side of the property. That's nowhere in these documents.
I am happy to write documents. I'm not a person that gets up here and says something or allows a client to say something and not do it. So if I need to put more things in a deed restriction, I have no problem doing that. So.
And this is no knock on your client, but I mean, you're proposing 55 townhome units, okay? This is a non-binding conceptual plan. They could go out there theoretically after they get the MF1 zoning and they could build 55 driveways. Well, 55 driveways along a ditch that's already clogged is going to provide 55 more opportunities for it to get clogged after it gets fixed, and who's going to be responsible to maintain it?
I am happy to work on the deed restrictions to make sure that what we're presenting to you isn't a bait and switch.
I just think that those things need to be addressed in here. Those are the concerns I have personally. And that's nothing more than a personal concern.
I think production of the SWIP permits, to the extent that you mentioned that you already have those for the ditch on the south side. Am I correct in stating that?
That's correct.
Okay. At least production of that or inclusion of that in the deed restriction would go a long way, at least for that particular issue.
Okay. I am happy to go above and beyond here, and we'll continue to do that.
Personally, Barbara, I just hate to do it. For me personally, I just think there's too many things that still have to be worked out. Would you guys accept a continuance?
Okay. Well, I guess, it's very important to me
I'm one voice,
and my
so,
client. It's very important to me and my client that we answer the questions of Planning Commission. But we're getting down into design of projects and all those things. And at some point, there's only so much that you can do. But I can certainly work on, so that we don't have an issue of we get approved and then we do something different. But we also have that understanding that at some point we have to actually go through construction plan review.
Sure, I understand.
Well, why don't you, if you want to, then make a motion.
I'll make a motion to continue.
To a date certain.
To the next meeting in Newport Richey?
The next Planning Commission meeting in Newport Richey is on November 18th.
November 18th.
At 1:30 here in Newport Richey.
And could you be clear what you want us to do in between?
I mean, I think a lot of those items just have to be addressed. Personally, I'd like to see them addressed in the deed restrictions, because that's the only way I think that you can restrict what's going to happen on this property. I mean, the ditch on the south side of the property, some of the layout of the property, the concept plan represents, I mean, I know at the last hearing we had, there was a concern about the trees in these people's backyard and being able to look out at what was behind them. They would have less problem if it was single family and a common type of development, but it's not. It's townhome units, clustered units. I personally don't see how the trees represented on the concept plan are going to remain if you have to build a 35-foot wide ditch in the back of the property.
Because there's 90.
Excuse me, you
between.
can't just come up and speak.
And
You-
I can't,
Well,
I
would
can't
you,
answer any of these questions?
Barbara,
But-
are you yielding your time?
Of course, I'm healing my time.
All right.
So the ditches that you're talking about, that you don't know that if they're gonna be built or not.
We'll
I've
need
already-
your name so we know who's speaking.
What's that?
We need your
Mr.
name so
Chair,
we
we
know.
had
Chris
a,
Shear,
we had a
I've already been
motion
sworn.
that has not been either,
Let's just
we had
carry
a
on.
motion that needed to either have a second or it needs to be not seconded and turned down before we continue forward with speaking.
Withdrawn.
Well, I don't think we got a second.
No,
We're
we did
waiting
not,
for-
so therefore it's a mute issue.
We're waiting for him to answer this question.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
Do
Go
you-
ahead.
Okay, go ahead and answer.
And anyway, the ditches that you were talking about, are they gonna be built or not? I already have permits to build those ditches. I already have site development permits for that project. I already have set in stone the amount of impervious that I can have. I don't wanna modify those permits. I don't wanna modify the ditch. I'm gonna build it the way it's already permitted because it works. The ditch along the front, I'm gonna reconstruct it the way it's already been permitted because it works. So those things will be happening when I build the subdivision, and hopefully when I get to repair the Riverside Village system that is broken and continues to flood me. Now, who's gonna maintain the ditch in the front and the ditch in the back will be the homeowners association for the townhomes. When they get in there, I will run the homeowners association until a certain percentage of people buy their homes, and then they take over the homeowners association, and they'll run it themselves. And there'll be some guy that's the president, and, they'll have their board of directors, and they'll take care of their own maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, again, my concern is just if I live in that association that's out there now, and I look at the conceptual plan that you provided today, it shows trees in 2/3 of the backyard.
Yeah.
Okay, you have 90 feet,
So
and
I
you're putting a
got,
35-foot ditch in there, that it doesn't leave you room to put leave all those trees. Some of those trees are gonna have to come out. I mean, maybe that fits between the trees in the back of the house.
there's 80, 90 feet, less 35, there's plenty of room for more trees. And they're new trees, old trees.
It's just
When
not
I-
represented, that ditch is not represented in the concept plan.
When
That's my
when
only
I
point.
asked the architect to put the site plan together, I said, show the houses, show the neighborhood that's surrounding it. I didn't ask her to draw a ditch on the back of it. That's my bad. But it's just 35 feet.
I understand. That's why, I mean, honestly, that's why my motion was to continue, so you can incorporate some of those things for the next meeting. It hasn't been seconded yet. It might not be seconded.
Okay,
Okay.
so we have a motion. Do we have a second? Chris?
Yeah, I will second it.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I'm just going to address the issue of continuance. I think this is the second time, the second bite at the apple. I think the attorney has done her job, or his job. I think the property owner has done his due diligence, and he's just waiting to move this forward so they can develop the site plans and move forward with it. And that's why I will vote no against the continuance.
I will as well. I applaud you for the efforts. I mean, my time here has been very limited on the commission, but the water issues are frequent and many, and it's refreshing to have someone come in and attempt to resurrect or correct something that should have been corrected a long time ago. So I applaud you for the effort that you've put into this.
All right?
Can we do a roll call vote for the record?
Sure. Okay, so all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Roll call.
Jamie Girardi,
Aye.
John Anderson,
Nay.
Peter Hansel,
No.
Christopher Poole,
Yes.
Richard Canello,
Nay.
Chairman Charles Gray.
Nay.
3-3. Does Richard vote?
Would you like to
Richard.
entertain another?
Yeas and 4 nays.
Okay, so the motion was denied.
Fails.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to move forward with the project as stated in our P6.
All right, so we have a motion to approve in accordance with the submission, recommendation by the staff. Do we have a second?
I will second it.
We have a motion and a second.
May I have a clarification on the motion before you call for vote? Is the clarification to also add a swift mud permit on the deed, the restrictive covenants, on the deed restriction?
Peter?
That was part of some of the conversation before, so I just wanted to make sure if that wasn't added to
You
that.
have me at a disadvantage here because I assume that Swift Mud will get involved with it by law because of the ditch KK and some other documents, because it's a water issue, it's within the county, so I just don't know which way to go. My assumption is that Swift Mud will
So
become.
you'd want to include the
I
Swift
would,
Mud.
then therefore I would say, yes, Swift Mud needs to provide some input on this project.
And I'll work with Elizabeth to write it up.
That's what my understanding was that the extra stuff to clarify what's being proposed is going to be added as much detail as possible that we can, and maybe some attachments, to this restrictive covenant. Yeah.
And for clarification, there's 2 sets of deed restrictions, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion of the motion?
But the question, when is this scheduled to go in front of BCC?
December 7th.
Okay, so there's sufficient time to, okay.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Roll call.
Jamie Girardi,
Nay.
Don Anderson,
Aye.
Peter Hansel,
Aye.
Christopher Poole,
Aye.
Richard Canello,
Aye.
Chairman Charles Gray.
Aye.
Thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
So we're going to move on to item PC4. If you give me a minute so I can pull up the PowerPoint. Okay, on this item, you are sitting as the local planning agency. And before you is a modification to the Land Development Code, Section 204. This comes to you from the Board of County Commissioners. On July 6th, the Board of County Commissioners directed the Planning and Development Department to bring forward a modification to the Land Development Code, Section 204, which modifies the way Planning Commission members are appointed. Under the current Planning Commission, the way that the Planning Commission members were appointed was based on the Board of County Commissioners as a whole choosing the members. Because what's happened under the way the Board of County Commissioners maps, or the district maps are made up, currently there are a few commission districts that are not represented by the Planning Commission. So in other words, District 2, Commissioner Moore's district, it has 3 members in it. District 4, Commissioner Fitzpatrick's district has 3 members in it, which means that there are no members in District 1, no members in District 3, and no members in District 5. The Board of County Commissioners, although this is what they chose a few years ago when we put the new Planning Commission together in 2018, it's not what they want today. So basically, this will modify the appointment of the Planning Commission members. So each commissioner will appoint 1 member individually, and that will run concurrently with that board member's term of office. And then there will be one at-large member that will be appointed by the board as a whole. Obviously, the school board member is not affected here in this case. So, so basically, there is redistricting of the board occurring this year. I am including the map just so you could take a look at it. From the current membership that's on the Planning Commission right now, it only affects one member as to where that member used to reside. Let me just show you the map. That member used to reside in Commission District 4 and now will reside in Commission District 3, for example. This map will be adopted by the Board of County Commissioners before the end of the year, because you can only redistrict on non-election years. This particular item is set to actually take effect, even though it's going to go to the Board of County Commissioners for first reading on November 9th and for adoption December 7th. The effective date will not be until the second Planning Commission in February of 2022. That way it allows sufficient time for the Board of County Commissioners in their January meeting, in one of the 2 January meetings, to appoint Planning Commission members. So, and then of course it gives the Planning and Development Department, myself and Patty, enough time to contact each individual Planning Commission member. Mr. Anderson recently probably recalls, we had a few meetings, we went through the land development code, we provided copies. So there's a lot of things happening in the background that, you know, certainly are not front and center here, but there is a lot of touch points with the Planning Commission members. Some interviews, not necessarily that we're interviewing them for a job, but you know, we're basically saying, hey, this is what you should expect, or those type of things. And I'm sorry to point you out, Mr. Anderson. It was a great pleasure to do that. But I just wanted, you know, a lot of folks don't realize that there's a lot of things that happen in the background. So you know, I've been here before. I don't know if you remember me saying this to you. It's almost like deja vu to some of you who were on this Planning Commission when the Planning Commission was an 11-member Planning Commission, remember? And I got teared because you've become my friends throughout many years. Yeah, I'm sorry, it's happening again. I can't help it. And what bothers me the most is that I have to ask you to find this consistent with the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan and recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners. But that's what I'm actually going to ask you to do. So anyway.
I will be happy to make that motion, Mr. Chair.
So anyway, you know, that's what we're here for. This is something that the board has asked us to do, and this is why this is coming your way. So, again.
All right, well, thanks a lot.
Yeah.
So question, Denise, so the appointments are district-specific? So
that
a
is an
commissioner
excellent question.
cannot appoint from outside of his district?
No, a commissioner can appoint from outside of his or her district.
Okay.
It's just that the commission, as individual commission members, wanted to have the opportunity to appoint people in their district. There may be situations where the commissioner doesn't have anyone he or she is thinking about in his or her district, and it will appoint someone outside of that district. No, the way this is written is the commissioner just gets to appoint individually.
Okay, yeah, because
Instead of like having, you know, straws and
Right.
votes and all that.
Yeah, I just make the comment that, I mean, I certainly don't sit up here looking at a district. I mean, I sit up here looking, and I think I probably share that with the rest of my commissioners, that we look at the counties as a whole. So as long as that's the case.
And it's been my experience for all the years that I've been working with the Planning Commission. I've always known that.
Okay.
Always known that. With this Planning Commission and with prior Planning Commissions. You look at the county as a whole. You look at what's best for the county. You look at things in a utilitarian way, not just specifically district.
Okay, well, as long as you're not going anywhere, that's the...
After today's speech, I might.
All right, well, Don, you made the motion.
Yes, sir.
Do we have somebody to second that emotion?
Motion? I'll second.
Okay, we have two emotions. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Come on, guys, nobody's opposed. Okay. Motion carries.
So if you give me just a moment to load up the next one, because the next one's mine too.
Okay.
Could we take a quick recess?
Yeah, sure,
Thank you.
absolutely.
That'd be much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, so here's the next one. This is basically
We got two missing members now.
Oh,
See?
we do? Okay, so
Chased
do
them
you-
off.
Should I wait a few minutes?
They got, you hurt their
Want to do
feelings.
a
Sam.
quick recess?
Recess, yeah.
We're going to recess?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Alex said he's, I asked Alex what the PC was wanting to see, so we need to give him a price.
Yeah, I've been waiting on Chris to call me back. She's been out sick. Because she's representing.
Chris Hudson?
Okay, let's just say, hello.
Okay.
Are we back?
I think we're back. Are we back?
Yay. All right, fabulous.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So on this one, of course, you're sitting as a local planning agency. So this is our set of package amendments that you get once, twice a year, that typically come as a result of unintended consequence of something that we may have approved in the past, or developer may have contacted us and say, hey, there's an issue with this in the code. How do you, the way that it's being interpreted. So there's different things in this package set of amendments. As you see, we didn't call it minor this time. We didn't call it glitch because there's a combination of everything. So there's all of the above happening in here. So basically, I will tell you that these were presented to the horizontal roundtable and interested parties meeting on August 18th, 2021, and October 20th of 2021. Additionally, there's a specific section, which is 901.4 substandard roadway analysis mitigation, which there was also a subgroup of the horizontal roundtable, which included transportation planners, transportation engineers. I'm sure Mr. Henry, who was here a few minutes ago, was part of that group that worked on that item because they are, the subject matter experts on that. So I'm going to go through everything that's being proposed. So we're going to start with RMH. So if you may recall, in Land Development Code Amendment 27, we allowed for RMH to have site-built homes on it, but yet we didn't call out setbacks for site-built homes. So this is a unintended consequence from Land Development Code Amendment 27. So those projects that are out there in the world right now, because we stopped allowing site-built homes for large swaths of area in December of 2020, but those projects don't have setbacks. So we're just basically saying, well, you use the same setbacks as the mobile homes, but we need to codify that. So these can't be by interpretation or it makes sense or whatever. We need to have these things codified in our code. So we're codifying that. The following section, this comes from folks who have called us and said, hey, we have this subdivision and we want to put an HOA structure for our subdivision. And we looked at R2 and we looked at R3, and that's not allowed. The code is silent. However, it's allowed in R4. So we're like, okay, let's match R2 and R3 to R4 because they are also subdivisions, with the exception of R2 are 80-foot wide lots, R3 are, smaller lots, 75-foot, or R2 is 90-foot wide lots, and R3 is 75-foot wide lots. They're still communities. Same thing, you still need HOA structures, that type of thing. So we added that as a special exception, identically to the way that it is in the R4 district. So the next sections, which are C3 and I1 and I2, let's see how I could best describe this. So when the Land Development Code was restated in 2012, and there were a few amendments to that code, there was a determination that was made, and it was codified into the code that said you could do mini warehousing and storage, which that was the way we called that term before, until the Land Development Code was changed, and the change called out RV, boat storage, self-storage facilities, all those terms were defined. So our customers are under the impression that because mini warehouse is allowed in these districts, that they could continue to do this. But that was not the intent of when we specifically changed the code to call out recreational vehicle and boat storage and specifically self-storage facilities. So to assist our customers and understanding that the Board of County Commissioners does not want to see those type of uses in industrial areas because they want to see employment generating uses, we said, well, we're going to change the code and we're going to include them as special exception uses because recreational vehicle and boat storage typically doesn't require building a structure, doesn't require a lot of investment, and then allowing it as a special exception so that it's timed. So that we basically say, okay, this person wants to do this use for 5 years, 3 years, 10 years, whatever it is, until such time that he or she can find an actual, employment generating use for those parcels. So we made that change to C3, I1, and I2, calling them out specifically as special exceptions. And because there weren't special exceptions in those districts, we had to renumber and re-letter the sections as well. So that's why you see a lot of dark areas there. The following change came from the Board of County Commissioners, and that is basically Chapter 500, 530 Supplemental Regulations. We're adding a section for outdoor lighting illumination limits. So basically, this is something that was directed to us by the Board of County Commissioners, both on April 7th of this year and May 18th of this year. So if 530.14 sounds really, or looks very familiar to you, it's because that section previously, in a few codes ago, was actually the alcoholic beverages section. But because we put everything together into 402.5D, and it's done administrative use way, that's why that section might look familiar to you, but it's a reserved section after we made the changes to the code, and now it's called outdoor lighting illumination limits. The following section, this is where the people with the big brains worked on this. This is section 901.4. This is what I told you. This was presented first to the horizontal roundtable on August 18th of 21, and again on October 20th. And this is what came out of that. It removes arterial roadways from applicable facilities. It removes the 80%, 20% rule. It defines new exemptions for mitigation and analysis for the projects impacting collector and local roadways. It changes the section designee from county engineer to county administrator designee. It changes the mitigation as it relates to collector and local roadways. It defines a time limit for using the collected fair share, and it revises Exhibit 901-4 for consistency with the latest ITE trip generation manual. And you could tell that I'm not the subject matter expert because I had to read from a PowerPoint to tell you about all that.
Can you just hold off one second? This is, Chapter 500 talks about lighting.
Yes.
Light intrusion into neighborhood yards.
Yes.
I assume that's not going to be permitted, correct?
That's correct. So now you have to have these type of fixtures so that you don't do light intrusion. Our code is silent to that. So what's happening, our Board of County Commissioners, their constituency, was reaching out to them and saying, hey, commissioners, I can't sleep at night because I've got this person shining their spotlight onto my yard. So they brought it up at a board meeting earlier this year.
Yeah, what about street lighting?
This doesn't affect street lighting. We
Okay.
do have street lighting requirements in the land development code already exist.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. So then the next, of course, is definitions. Because we're creating all these sections, we have to define all the terms that are included. So we're basically defining the terms that are in the new section for outdoor lighting. And regarding the other item, the warehouse definition, we're undoing what we did in early 2014 regarding mini warehouse. So we're returning the mini warehouse exclusion to the definition of warehouse. And because that's not what we call it anymore. We call it self-storage facilities. That's now what they're called. And we're also adding the term self-storage facilities into that definition. And again, those are unintended consequence from Land Development Code Amendments 8 and 42. So that is all the remarkably interesting things that we're bringing forward to the Board of County Commissioners. This is the schedule. It's going to first reading by the Board of County Commissioners on November 9th at 1:30 in Dade City, and it's going for adoption on December 7th at 1:30 in Newport Richey. And we are asking that you find the proposed ordinance amendments consistent with the Pasco County Comprehensive Plan, and that you recommend approval to the Board of County Commissioners. And I'm here for any questions.
I don't think there's any questions, is there? Okay.
I will compliment you, and, it's interesting, as a casual observer of the Board of County Commissioners, there's a number of things in here that you're adjusting that reflect what they'd like to see from a business perspective, so that's good to see. My only comment is, and happy to vote on these things, but the one thing I found a little contrary was the Chapter 900, and I don't have any understanding of anything that's
Sure,
stated.
and we have very intelligent
Stated
people
there.
on the line who can answer any question you may have on 901.4.
I'm
afraid my ignorance doesn't permit me to ask a qualified question of that section, but.
But Don is willing to stay after the meeting.
So
Yes,
I will, so if it makes anyone feel any better, and because it does me, Mr. Goldstein was part of all those conversations, as were folks from the outside world, as were folks from our very, very intelligent transportation staff who have PhD next to their name. So it does make me feel a lot better. That's why this gal right here just has to read from a PowerPoint slide.
Mr. Chair, I'll be happy to make a motion to accept the recommendation of the staff for PDD 22-0009.
All right, we have a motion.
I'll second.
Yeah, we have a second. Any further discussion of the motion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Thank you so much for all your
Done
time
your
and your
job.
attention, and that was your last item.
And before we go today, I just want to touch on one thing, because this last application that we heard, I think, I was really conflicted about how I voted for that, because I felt that the applicant was offering to do a lot to get what he needs, and these are things that needed to be done. And I was looking at this aerial here, and I was thinking, wow, look at those row of rooftops, and where all these rooftops, you could walk from one to the other, and yet they're complaining there's all this green space, next to them. A lot of it didn't make a lot of sense to me in terms of, why we should turn it down. But I think the point Jamie was making, and that's a good one, and I think it's something we need to think about in the future, is when you have a utility and zoning like this, and correct me if I'm wrong, we can't condition it. So if we want something, they have to agree to deed restriction.
Right.
And if we don't have it written down properly, then, the guy gets approval, he can go do whatever he wants to do. So that's a danger, and I felt really uneasy about voting to approve it, because I knew Jamie was right in what he said.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Or even more so that zoning runs with the property.
Right.
So he could therefore sell
Right.
it.
Yes.
Without it being
Yes.
any
And somebody else could
formalized,
do something
yeah.
completely different.
Correct.
Absolutely. As you said, you could end up with 55 driveways.
Yeah.
Right.
So what I'm hanging my hat really on is, Liz, is that you're gonna get with Barbara and
Right.
hold her feet to the
Sure,
fire.
Either myself or David. yeah.
And, or you or David, I have a lot of confidence in both of you, so.
And maybe I'm making a mistake putting confidence in Barbara, but I believe on her record, I don't believe she would misrepresent the intent of the owner.
All I'm saying is if she, even as good as she is and as honest as she is, she can't control that.
What happens next? Right.
So it's up to us to control it.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that in the future, we'll probably be a little bit more resolute about making sure it is in writing. So that then 5 years from now, it didn't come back and slap us in the face.
Right.
So I just want to make a comment about that, because I thought you made a good point.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, and sometimes we're faced with contentious items that,
Yeah.
I mean, there's contention even between the two associations of the owner and the association in that case.
I felt bad for the guy, because it seemed like he was doing so much
Yeah,
to,
right.
to try to alleviate their problem. A problem that really, in my opinion, their homeowners association should have fixed.
Yeah.
Well, the future's going to be is you're going to have two homeowners associations in the community. You've got
Right.
his, plus the other one, and in my opinion, is the other one wasn't doing their job.
Well, I completely agree with you.
And, the community I live in, I should.
But unless we put it in writing, this new owned association is not gonna have to do their job either, so.
And who enforces that going forward?
Right, exactly.
That's
Right.
the issue. I mean, history recreates itself all the
That's
time.
true. So, that's just my comment.
Yep.
Okay.
Good comment.
Anybody else?
Thank you for the opportunity to
Don,
serve.
one more thing on your concern with some of those ordinance revisions and stuff. I mean, I know Denise and staff, they go above and beyond with all the outside committees and and all the review teams to go over that stuff. So usually when it gets to us, it's usually
it's
pretty safe.
fait accompli. Good. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you saying that, Jamie, because the worst thing that can happen is to have a lot of
Oh.
people in this room saying, oh, no, we don't want that, that's terrible, that's going to help, that's going to affect us or whatever. So certainly we want to make sure that we've talked to all the subject matter experts and all the people. So I appreciate that.
It's been my experience that you're very thorough.
We try
Yeah,
our
and
best.
there are a couple of occasions where things do come to us, and usually there's a row of consultants or 2 or 4 out there that are here in opposition to Scream. So.
Yeah. And, we have been known, because it has happened in the past, because we want to make sure the package amendments move forward, but we have pulled a certain item out of, if it's something very contentious and we think we still need to work on, we'll pull that out. So, I mean, we've done that before. In the years I've been here, we've done that a few times, so.
Yes, I do recall a fire tower being built, and you guys opposed it on Dade City, and folks were in favor. You remember that one? And I don't know whatever happened. If it
Mr.
was-
McKnight passed away sadly
Oh.
a few years ago. So his wife is still around. The way the board approved it ultimately
And
was
on him.
that it was for Mr. McKnight and his wife, and no successors in interest. So once Ms. McKnight, I don't even want to say this, once they're no longer owners of that property, there's requirements for removal.
Yes.
But I don't believe it was ever fully built. I think they're just like 2 sections, so it's not very tall. Yeah, that was sad.
So those kinds of things do come, and it's,
Yeah, I remember that one.
yeah, it's really kind of hard. Do you want to have something for this individual who was kind and considerate, and, I didn't know him at all. and
One of the
whatnot.
nicest people I've ever met.
In Dade City, and
Praise
here
the
he
Lord.
wanted this particular thing done, because he liked to be closer to the heavens, I guess, I don't know, but, those sometimes are things that are done. I just, like today, I felt like, it's, I wish we didn't have this thing on, but, so therefore I will stop speaking.
We can adjourn.
Yeah, we could.
All right, gang. Thanks
Motion
again
to
for
adjourn.
everything.
Second.
And you'd like to
See you at the next meeting.
I want to show this
Aye.
to David.
Yeah.
That's all.
We're adjourned.